a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Shaivism. Shaivism is one of the major traditions within Hinduism that reveres Shiva as the supreme being. The followers of Shaivism are called Shaivites or Saivites, like much of Hinduism. The Shaiva have many sub-traditions, ranging from devotional dualistic theism such as Shaiva Siddhanta to yoga-oriented monistic non-theism such as Kashmiri Shaivism. It considers both the Vedas and the Agama texts as important sources of theology. The origin of Shaivism may be traced to the conception of Rudra in the RigVeda. Shaivism has ancient roots, traceable in the Vedic literature of 2nd millennium BCE. But this is in the form of the Vedic deity Rudra. The ancient text Shvetashvatara Upanishad dated to late 1st millennium BCE mentions terms such as Rudra, Shiva, and Maheshwaram, but its interpretation as a theistic or monistic text of Shaivism is disputed. In the early centuries of the Common Era is the first clear evidence of Pāśupata Shaivism. Both devotional and monistic Shaivism became popular in the 1st millennium CE, rapidly becoming the dominant religious tradition of many Hindu kingdoms. It arrived in Southeast Asia shortly thereafter, leading to thousands of Shaiva temples on the islands of Indonesia as well as Cambodia and Vietnam, co-evolving with Buddhism in these regions. In the contemporary era, Shaivism is one of the major aspects of Hinduism. Shaivism theology ranges from Shiva being the creator, preserver, destroyer to being the same as the Atman within oneself and every living being. It is closely related to Shaktism, and some Shaiva worship in Shiva and Shakti temples. It is the Hindu tradition that most accepts ascetic life and emphasizes yoga, and like other Hindu traditions encourages an individual to discover and be one with Shiva within. Shaivism is one of the largest traditions within Hinduism. Etymology and nomenclature. Shiva literally means kind, friendly, gracious, or auspicious. As a proper name, it means the auspicious one. The word Shiva is used as an adjective in the RigVeda, as an epithet for several Rigvedic deities, including Rudra. The term Shiva also connotes liberation, final emancipation, and the auspicious one. This adjective sense of usage is addressed to many deities in Vedic layers of literature. The term evolved from the Vedic Rudra Shiva to the noun Shiva in the epics and the Puranas, as an auspicious deity who is the creator, reproducer and dissolver. The Sanskrit word or Shaiva means relating to the god Shiva, while the related beliefs, practices, history, literature and sub-traditions constitute Shaivism. Overview. The reverence for Shiva is one of the pan-Hindu traditions, found widely across India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. While Shiva is revered broadly, Hinduism itself is a complex religion and a way of life, with a diversity of ideas on spirituality and traditions. It has no ecclesiastical order, no unquestionable religious authorities, no governing body, no prophet nor any binding holy book. Hindus can choose to be polytheistic, pantheistic, monotheistic, monistic, agnostic, atheistic or humanist. Shaivism is a major tradition within Hinduism, with a theology that is predominantly related to the Hindu god Shiva. Shaivism has many different sub-traditions with regional variations and differences in philosophy. Shaivism has a vast literature with different philosophical schools, ranging from non-dualism, dualism, and mixed schools. Origins and history. The origins of Shaivism are unclear and a matter of debate among scholars. Some trace the origins to the Indus Valley Civilization, which reached its peak around 2500–2000 BCE. Archaeological discoveries show seals that suggest a deity that somewhat appears like Shiva. Of these is the Pāśupata seal, which early scholars interpreted as someone seated in a meditating yoga pose surrounded by animals and with horns. This Pāśupata seal has been interpreted by these scholars as a prototype of Shiva. Gavin Flood characterizes these views as speculative, saying that it is not clear from the seal if the figure has three faces, or is seated in a yoga posture, or even that the shape is intended to represent a human figure. Other scholars state that the Indus Valley script remains undeciphered, and the interpretation of the Pāśupata seal is uncertain, according to Srinivasan. The proposal that it is Proto-Shiva may be a case of projecting later practices into archaeological findings. Similarly, Arsko-Parpola states that other archaeological finds such as the early Elamite seals dated to 3000–2750 BCE show similar figures, and these have been interpreted as seated bull and not yogi, and the bull interpretation is likely more accurate. Vedic evidence. The RigVeda has the earliest clear mention of Rudra in its hymns such as 2.33, 1.43 and 1.114. The text also includes a Sataradriya, an influential hymn with embedded 100 epithets for Rudra, that is cited in many medieval-era Shaiva texts as well as recited in major Shiva temples of Hindus in contemporary times. Yet, the Vedic literature only presents scriptural theology, but does not attest to the existence of Shaivism. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad, likely composed before the Bhagavad Gita about the 4th century BCE, contains the theistic foundations of Shaivism wrapped in a monistic structure. It contains the key terms and ideas of Shaivism, such as Shiva, Rudra, Maheshwara, Puru, Bhakti, Yoga, Atman, Brahman and self-knowledge. Emergence of Shaivism. According to Gavin Flood, the formation of Saiva traditions as we understand them begins to occur during the period from 200 BC to 100 AD. According to Chakravarti, Shiva rose to prominence as he was identified to be the same as Purusha, Rudra, Agni, Indra, among others. Patanjalis, dated to the 2nd century BCE, mentions the term Shiva Bhagavata in section 5 of February 1976. Patanjali, while explaining Panini's rules of grammar, states that this term refers to a devotee clad in animal skins and carrying an ayasalika as an icon representing his god. The Mahabharata is another ancient Sanskrit text that mentions Shaiva ascetics, such as in chapters 4.13 and 13.140. Other evidence that is possibly linked to the importance of Shaivism in ancient times are in epigraphy and numismatics, such as in the form of prominent Shiva-like reliefs on Kushan Empire-era gold coins. However, this is controversial, as an alternate hypothesis for these reliefs is based on Zoroastrian Isho. According to Flood, coins dated to the ancient Greek, Saka and Parthian kings who ruled parts of the Indian subcontinent after the arrival of Alexander the Great also show Shiva iconography, but this evidence is weak and subject to competing inferences. The inscriptions found in the Himalayan region, such as those in the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal, suggest that Shaivism was established in this region during the Mauryas and the Gupta's reign of the Indian subcontinent, by the 5th century. These inscriptions have been dated by modern techniques to between 466 and 645 CE. Puranic Shaivism. During the Gupta dynasty, the genre of Purana literature developed in India, and many of these Puranas contain extensive chapters on Shaivism along with Vaishnavism, Shaktism, Smarta traditions of Brahmins, and other topics suggesting the importance of Shaivism by then. The most important Shaiva Puranas of this period include the Shiva Purana and the Linga Purana. In early 7th century, the Chinese Buddhist pilgrim Xuanzang visited India and wrote a memoir in Chinese that mentions the prevalence of Shiva temples all over North Indian subcontinent, including in the Hindu Kush region such as Nuristan. Between the 5th and 11th century CE, major Shaiva temples had been built in central, southern and eastern regions of the subcontinent, including those at Badama cave temples, Ahil, Elephanta caves, Ellora caves, Khajuraho, Bhuvaneshwara, Chidambaram, Madurai, Kanjivaram. Major scholars of competing Hindu traditions from the second half of the first millennium CE, such as Adi Shankara of Advaita Vedanta and Ramanuja of Vaishnavism, mention several Shaiva sects, particularly the four groups, Pāśupata, Lakulisha, Tantric Shaiva and Kapalika. The description is conflicting, with some texts stating the Tantric, Puranic, and Vedic traditions of Shaivism to be hostile to each other, while others suggest them to be amicable sub-traditions. Some texts state that Kapalikas reject the Vedas and are involved in extreme experimentation, while others state the Shaiva sub-traditions revere the Vedas, but are non-Puranic. South India. Shaivism was likely the predominant tradition in South India, coexisting with Buddhism and Jainism, before the Vaishnava launched the Bhakti movement in the 7th century, and influential Vedanta scholars such as Ramanuja developed a philosophical and organizational framework that helped Vaishnava expand, though both traditions of Hinduism have ancient roots. Given their mention in the epics such as the Mahabharata, Shaivism flourished in South India much earlier. The Mantramarga of Shaivism, according to Alexis Sanderson, provided a template for the later, though independent and highly influential Pankaratrika treatises of Vaishnava. This is evidenced in Hindu texts such as the Svarasvita, Padmasvita, and Paramisvarasvita. Along with the Himalayan region stretching from Kashmir through Nepal, the Shaiva tradition in South India has been one of the largest sources of preserved Shaivism-related manuscripts from ancient and medieval India. The region was also the source of Hindu arts, temple architecture, and merchants who helped spread Shaivism into Southeast Asia in early 1st millennium CE. There are tens of thousands of Hindu temples where Shiva is either the primary deity or reverentially included in anthropomorphic or uniconic form. Numerous historic Shaiva temples have survived in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, parts of Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. Certain regions have a greater density of Shiva temples, such as in the Tanjavur region of Tamil Nadu, where numerous Shaiva temples were built during the Chola Empire era. Between 800 and 1200 CE, Gudamalam is the oldest known lingam and has been dated to between 3rd to 1st century BCE. It is a carved 5 feet high stone lingam with an anthropomorphic image of Shiva on one side. This ancient lingam is in Chittor district of Andhra Pradesh. Southeast Asia. Shaivism arrived in a major way in Southeast Asia from South India, and to much lesser extent into China and Tibet from the Himalayan region. It co-developed with Buddhism in this region, in many cases. For example, in the Caves of the Thousand Buddhas, a few caves include Shaivism ideas. The epigraphical and cave arts evidence suggest that Shiva Maheshwara and Mahayana Buddhism had arrived in Indochina region in the Funan period. That is in the first half of the 1st millennium CE. In Indonesia, temples at archaeological sites and numerous inscription evidence dated to the early period suggest that Shiva was the highest god. This coexistence of Shaivism and Buddhism in Indonesian islands continued through about 1500 CE, when both Hinduism and Buddhism were replaced with Islam. The Shaivist and Buddhist traditions overlapped significantly in Southeast Asia, particularly in Indonesia, Cambodia and Vietnam between the 5th and the 15th century. Shaivism and Shiva held the paramount position in ancient Java, Sumatra, Bali and neighboring islands, though the sub-tradition that developed creatively integrated more ancient beliefs that pre-existed. In the centuries that followed, the merchants and monks who arrived in Southeast Asia brought Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and Buddhism, and these developed into a syncretic, mutually supporting form of traditions. Beliefs and practices. Shaivism centers around Shiva, but it has many sub-traditions whose theological beliefs and practices vary significantly. They range from dualistic devotional theism to monistic meditative discovery of Shiva within oneself. Within each of these theologies, there are 2 subgroups. One subgroup is called Vedic Puranic, who use the terms such as Shiva, Mahadeva, Maheshwara and others synonymously, and they use iconography such as the Linga, Nandi, Trishula, as well as anthropomorphic statues of Shiva in temples to help focus their practices. Another subgroup is called esoteric, which fuses it with abstract Shivata or Shivatva, wherein the theology integrates the goddess and the god with Tantra practices and Agama teachings. There is a considerable overlap between these Shaivas and the Shaikta Hindus. Vedic, Puranic and esoteric Shaivism. Scholars such as Alexis Sanderson discuss Shaivism in three categories: Vedic, Puranic and non-Puranic. They place Vedic and Puranic together given the significant overlap, while placing non-Puranic esoteric sub-traditions as a separate category. Texts. Over its history, Shaivism has been nurtured by numerous texts ranging from scriptures to theological treatises. These include the Vedas and Upanishads, the Agamas, and the Bhāsya. According to Gavin Flood, a professor at Oxford University specializing in Shaivism and phenomenology, Shaiva scholars developed a sophisticated theology in its diverse traditions. Among the notable and influential commentaries by Advaita theistic Shaivism scholars were the 8th century Sadyoti, the 10th century Ramakantha, 11th century Bodhideva. The dualistic theology was challenged by the numerous scholars of Advaita Shaivism persuasion such as the 8th/9th century Vasugupta, the 10th century Abhinavagupta and 11th century Kshmaraja. Particularly the scholars of the Pratyabhijna, Spanda and Kashmiri Shaivism schools of theologians. Vedas and principal Upanishads. The Vedas and Upanishads are shared scriptures of Hinduism, while the Agamas are sacred texts of specific sub-traditions. The surviving Vedic literature can be traced to the first millennium BCE and earlier, while the surviving Agamas can be traced to first millennium of the Common Era. The Vedic literature, in Shaivism, is primary and general, while Agamas are special treatise, in terms of philosophy and spiritual precepts. No Agama that goes against the Vedic literature, states Mariasur Davmani, will be acceptable to the Shaivas. According to David Smith, a key feature of the Tamil Shaiva Siddhanta, one might almost say its defining feature, is the claim that its source lies in the Vedas as well as the Agamas, in what it calls the Vedagamas. This school's view can be summed as: the Upanishad is the earliest textual exposition of a systematic philosophy of Shaivism. Shaiva minor Upanishads. Shaivism-inspired scholars authored 14 Shiva-focused Upanishads that are called the Shaiva Upanishads. These are considered part of 95 minor Upanishads in the Mutaka Upanishadic corpus of Hindu literature. The earliest among these were likely composed in 1st millennium BCE, while the last ones in the late medieval era. The Shaiva Upanishads present diverse ideas, ranging from Bhakti-style theistic dualism themes to a synthesis of Shaiva ideas with Advaitic, Yoga, Vaishnava and Shakti themes. Shaiva Agamas. The Agama texts of Shaivism are another important foundation of Shaivism theology. These texts include Shaiva cosmology, epistemology, philosophical doctrines, precepts on meditation and practices, 4 kinds of yoga, mantras, meanings and manuals for Shaiva temples, and other elements of practice. These canonical texts exist in Sanskrit and in South Indian languages such as Tamil. The Agamas present a diverse range of philosophies, ranging from theistic dualism to absolute monism. In Shaivism, there are 10 dualistic Agama texts, 18 qualified monism cum dualism Agama texts and 64 monism Agama texts. The Bhairava Shastras are monistic, while Shiva Shastras are dualistic. The Agama texts of Shaiva and Vaishnava schools are premised on existence of Atman and the existence of an ultimate reality is within man. God is within every being. God is present everywhere in the world including all non-living beings, and there is no spiritual difference between life, matter, man and God. While Agamas present diverse theology, in terms of philosophy and spiritual precepts, no Agama that goes against the Vedic literature, states Davmani, has been acceptable to the Shaivas. Brought to you by WikiVidi documentaries. Would you like to know more?